Hello and welcome to Drive and Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we cover 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into this Tuesday's movie, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. For $5 a month, you can help support the show, help us get streaming services, and you also get some fun content over there. Getting into this week's movie, we're talking about a very, very recent movie, 2021's Drive My Car, directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. This movie, it was kind of a big deal last year. It's a very long movie. It's 2 hours, 59 minutes with a lot of content, a lot to talk about. It's a big movie. I had seen this before. I will be honest, I love this movie. It's one of my favorites. So I guess, Ryan, how are you feeling about this one?
I liked it. I can't say I was totally blown away, but I really do enjoy the story. It's a very, very dense movie. For a movie that not a lot on screen happens, but there's a lot of really deep, engrossing conversations, and there's a lot of dialogue in there that you really need to pay attention to and hear. And but I will say, just like the acting in this movie is superb. There's some really phenomenal performances, especially by the lead actor, and it was really good. I'm glad I actually took the time to watch it. I'm glad our show had a good excuse for me to actually finally sit down and watch it.
Yeah, because it is a lot of movie to just sit down and be like, I'm watching Drive My Car today, so but it's just, for me personally, it's a movie that just I get so engrossed in every time I've watched it. Everything that's said, the dialogue is so good because, like you said, it's a slow movie. Not a lot happens on screen. It's minimal action. It's almost like no action, just kind of like people discussing emotions, feelings with each other. And there's something about it that just works so well for me. And we'll get into it later in the movie. There's one scene that I think is great. But one thing that I think is wild about this movie, so the first 40 minutes is like a prelude to the rest of the movie because the opening credits don't come up until 40 minutes into the movie.
I was, because like I said, nowadays you don't even see opening credits anymore. So I was just, they're like, okay, the movie's starting, no big deal. And then, like you said, like 40 minutes in, it's like, Drive My Car. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow. We're not getting into the meat we're not into the meat yet. Huh?
The movie just now started.
Yeah. It's really an interesting choice, I think. And I think it makes sense because, it does feel like almost 2 different movies to me. Similar themes, but what happens in the beginning kind of ripples through the rest of the movie. So our main character, who's played by Hideyotoshi Nishijima, who you said was great. I totally agree. I think this man just looks so sad the whole time. He looks like a broken man this whole movie, but he doesn't have to cry or anything like that. You can just see it all in his face, the way he feels.
Yeah, he definitely is very reserved because, it's revealed that him and his wife had a daughter who died due to unforeseen circumstances, and before the opening credits, his wife dies as well.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really express a lot of grief or sadness, except when because he's an actor in the movie, and he puts on this play that his it was his wife, right, that helped write the screenplay for.
Yes, yeah, it was his wife.
And so when he finally gives that performance at the end, that's when he kind of has his emotional breakdown, but he does it in private and with nobody around. So
yeah, exactly. And you learn that just throughout the whole movie that he's I don't know, very reserved, I guess, especially because, so one of the big plot points is that his wife is cheating on him at the beginning of the movie, and he catches them in the act, and he doesn't do anything about it. He just kind of sucks it in, and talks to her like nothing happened. And that just kind of sets the tone for this character for the rest of the movie. Um, and it's a really odd concept. I think the concept is so weird here. His wife is a great writer, right? Tells like crazy stories, but can only tell them after sex, and then she completely forgets them afterwards. It's something about her like creative process that I find that to be such a weird idea. Um,
Yeah, well, he has to, in order for her to write the story, he has to recap it to her the next day.
yeah, and I mean, like, what if it's not as good? What if he forgets some details? I mean,
Well, that does happen at one
yeah,
point because he's like, oh, she's like, well, what did we talk? What a story did I tell you? He's like, oh, I can't remember. And she's like, oh, well, it must not have been very good then.
yeah, exactly. And I love that moment because he's looking up because she talks about like being a lamprey in like her past life, which I guess is like an eel of some sort that's like sucks off of other like fish, like a flesh eater. And he's looking it up on his computer. It's like, what the hell is she talking about? I got to figure out what this is.
I, well, I was trying to like figure out like, so did he actually forget the details, or was this kind of like his, I don't really want to,
I don't,
maybe he had like some type of resentment build up or something,
well,
and that was his way of lashing out?
that's what I think. So I don't think he forgot because I think the computer was the sign of like, okay, he remembered the details that she said. He just doesn't want to say it. And I think that's because, so the whole movie, the play he's doing is an adaptation of Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
And he talks about how much it consumes you, how you see yourself in that. And I think when he listened to her story, he saw himself in that story that either he was the fish or the flesh eater, and he just felt like something bad was coming on, which as we find out, something was, because later in the movie, we kind of find out that she knew that he saw her cheating, and he reacted like nothing ever happened. So I think he saw himself in the story and just didn't want to relay that. He just didn't really want to be like, oh yeah, last night you gave me the story that was actually about me the whole time. So yeah, just moments like that, dialogue moments like that, there's so much to dig into. It is it's hefty. It's hefty, right?
Yeah, this is definitely not one of the movies where you can just like mess around on your phone or whatever while the movie's
No,
going on. Because
no.
there's some really key like moments that are like in the dialogue, and it's revealed later though. I mean that apparently she had been cheating on him multiple times,
Hmm.
and because I really do like that at first because he, like you said, he catches him and he just kind of like plays it off like, oh, I'm not really bothered by it or
Hmm.
whatever. I mean, he just because he walks in on them doing, like cheating, and he's just like, oh, I'm going to leave, and then doesn't say anything. And me being, seeing all these other like melodramas, you're expecting like, this big like revelation scene or like
Hmm.
this big confrontation that's going to happen later, but it never happens. And in fact, so much so that they have a conversation, and she's like, oh, by the way, when you come back, we need to have a conversation or whatever. And
Hmm.
he's like, oh, okay. And then he actually purposely avoids not coming home, like staying out really late. And
Yeah.
when he comes home, he sees that she's dead.
Yeah. So it's just really, really depressing. And there's not even a big moment with that. There's no like drama to it. He finds her dead, calls the cops, and then it cuts to almost like a year later. And he's like about to travel because he's moved his play to Hiroshima. Well, you do get a funeral scene. There is a moment that explains how she dies and everything. And the person that he saw his wife with is there. And this isn't the last time you'll see this character either.
No, and
Um,
you find out a lot of secrets about that character too.
what a character too. Yeah, Koji Takasutsuki, who plays like a really famous person, but has a very uncontrolled side to him. Uh,
Well, what I do like too is because when he does reappear later in the movie, they kind of like briefly hint at like there was like some scandal that he was involved in, and he's just like, oh well, like those things that type of stuff happens. That's like you want to get to know people, so implying that he had sex with a woman, but you're like, like, well, how bad can it be? And then spoilers, later in the movie, it's like, oh, this man who 2 years ago had an affair with a minor, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because it definitely feels like that he had a fall from grace, kind of, because it sounded like he was like a celebrity beforehand, like actually was in movies and stuff, and now it's a high profile stage play, but it's still like a little bit lower down the totem pole. And this play is really interesting. I like the idea of this play so what it is it's everybody speaks different languages. He gets people from everywhere. There's a Chinese speaker. There is Japanese speakers, of course. There's actually someone that does sign language, which I think is really cool. This is the only thing because no movie I think is perfect. I personally think
I disagree.
Oh, you disagree with this? Oh no. Well, we'll get into that sometime later. But if I were, go ahead.
Name something bad about the original Godzilla movie. I bet you can't.
No, it's perfect.
Well, good. We're settled. Anyway,
okay,
sorry.
Good. But no, if I were to do a play like this where everybody speaks different languages, I do think it's a bit odd that you put subtitles on in the background. I feel like part of the point would be that everybody speaks different languages and you kind of take that in, right? I don't know. At least that's me personally. I think
so you think us as a viewer, we shouldn't be able to decipher what the quote foreign speakers are saying?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Well, no. I mean, actually, on the stage play, you know how the subtitles are in the background on the wall projected. I'm not gonna. No, I need to understand the movie. No, I meant like at the play where the whole point is that everyone speaks different languages.
Yeah,
I know that's a weird thing to bring up.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying because that does kind of defeat the purpose. It's like,
yeah.
So like you want me to stare at a screen instead of like the people on stage or?
Yeah. Like this lady's doing sign language and you want to do it where I read something. I don't know. It's a bit odd. That's one of the few things. I don't think it's too crazy. But yeah, well, one of the things, so Drive My Car is the name of the movie. I love this car. It's such a nice car.
Well, that's actually one of my negatives about the movie, Nathan.
Oh,
and I don't know if you remember the Eat My Dust episode, but I said my favorite kind of car was a blue car. This one's a red car, so this means it's a bad car.
Oh, gotcha. So you don't like red. You don't like red? Gotcha. You also don't like German cars, right? Is that what?
No Volkswagens for me. No, thank you. Or Saabs.
No Saabs. Well, I'm sorry. I like this car, Ryan.
No,
yeah, I don't even know what I said to what my favorite car was.
I don't remember what you
probably
said.
Didn't give an answer. But no, it was a Saab 900 in this, and I think it's really nice, old school. Well, another layer is he gets a cataract. And like he gets in an accident because he can't see because of it. So when he ends up going to Hiroshima, they don't let him drive the car. And they tell him that's what none of the artists can drive cars. They need a driver. But he eventually sees an actor in the show driving a car. So it's more like, oh, it's because you're a liability. You got in an accident before. We're not going to let you drive around here.
Yeah, that was a good moment. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And the driver in this, the character's name is Misaki, and she drives the car, and I think she's excellent in this movie. I think it's a perfect pairing for our main character.
Yeah, I thought so too, because he's very reserved. She's like a stone wall, or at first, because she's just kind of like, oh, I'm just here to drive a car, and he's like, well, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be working. She's like, that's fine, whatever. And like another quirk that he does is he wants to make sure he memorizes all the lines for the play. So like when he's doing our play originally, his wife had recorded all the lines of dialogue, in the play, and he has it on a cassette, and he just listens to it over and over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why he's like, oh, I requested along a hotel drive so that way I could have time to practice my lines. And I was just thinking of that girl. I was just like, she has to listen to like that same lines of dialogue for like forever. I was like, I would drive. It was especially because they said it's an hour car ride each way. So I'm like, that would drive me insane.
Drive you insane?
Yeah, and that's when the theme song kicked in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, the music in this is great. I know you said it was stuck in your head. It's really nice. The Drive My Car theme. It's got like a, I don't even know how to explain it. It's very light. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The Beatles had a good song.
Yes.
Drive My Car. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Beatles.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the Volkswagen Beetle, right? Because that's the wrong car.
No, Nathan, not that.
Never heard of them.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Just you, Ryan.
No, it does have a really nice score to it, and I don't know. It's just there's a lot of like moments that I really like. Like there's a scene later in the snow, like when they're driving in the snow, which I really like that moment a lot. And and then later in the movie, him and his driver, they both have like some really deep conversations together, and that's probably some like actually like my favorite moments of the whole movie is like when they're actually starting to like build a connection between each other.
Yeah, that's what I like about it too. I really like this, like their relationship. You know, it's not romantic or anything. It's more like, I don't know, mutuals, like, because they both sound like they've dealt with hard things, because it sounds like she had a horrible home life, a mom who kind of hit her, and even explained why she drives so well, which I find so crazy. But they kind of find that they both come from hard places, and they kind of build their relationship off of that, like understanding each other.
Yeah, they both take a lot of guilt in the deaths of their family member too. Like he feels like that he could have gone to, if he had just gotten to the house earlier, he might have been able to save his wife, but instead he chose to stay out. But then there was like a big landslide coming in her home country, but then they were like, she could have gone in and like rescued her mom or like said something, but she just chose not to say anything and let the landslide just take her.
Yeah.
But like you said, it does reveal that her mom's like super abusive to her and everything. So that's not justified, but it doesn't make it like such a full on murder either.
Yeah, it makes it like a gray area, right? It's a hard gray area. Yeah, and she gets dragged around to a lot of stuff. One of my favorite moment of the movie is whenever our main character finally confronts the actor in his show, and kind of tells, because I guess the story earlier had a different ending to him, and so they talk to each other in the car, and it's maybe like, I want to say 15-minute conversation between the two of them about his wife and what his wife meant to both of them. Dude, the first time... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to agree with you. I was saying it's such an intense scene that that scene, like, you don't realize how much time has passed because they're having such an intense conversation. They're like, oh, wow.
Yeah, I was watching it with my fiance, and like, usually it's hard for me to get so into a movie that I forget like I'm watching something. That scene, I was just like really sucked in, and the scene ended. I looked at her, I was like, I forgot I was watching a movie. I was so into that scene, just the way it was written and everything. It was just, there's a lot going on. So
you looked over at her and said, "Who are you?"
Huh?
I thought I was in a car this whole time.
I was in the passenger seat the whole time. But yeah,
no, it's a great moment because the story with the the eel or like the flesh eaters or whatever, it doesn't really have an ending to that. And he's like, oh, well, my wife never told me the ending. And then he's like, oh, I actually know the ending, like you said. And that's such in like, when I'm watching that movie, I'm like, oh crap, like
Yeah, no,
so he
there's
based
more.
well, yeah, because it's not because that's kind of like the point where like they like he knew that his wife was cheating on him, but he didn't know that this guy was like gonna just full on like admit to it either.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and this actor storyline gets a little wild too because he gets really angry when people take pictures of him, and he ends up killing someone who took a picture of him. And you know what? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just I like that part too because he showed there's a scene earlier where like a guy's like takes his picture and he's like delete it now,
Hmm.
and then he comes in and he's like no, just he stops him, but then there's another scene where it happens again and like a guy runs off and then he runs after him, but he runs off screen so you don't see anything happen, and then just like not even a minute later he comes running back like, oh hey, sorry, I had to go take care of something, and just
Yeah.
he just full on killed somebody like right there.
Yeah, that scene, like, watching it after the first time changes your perspective of how nonchalantly he turns the corner. It's like, yeah, you can take me back to the back to the hotel. Um, but yeah, I guess so. There's a whole dilemma because everyone expects the main actor here to play this main character, but he sees himself so much in this role that he can't stand to be in it. But since he gets arrested, the only person that can play that role is him because he's been practicing the lines.
Well, yeah, because like we said, like earlier in the movie, when he did that performance, he gave it his all. Like he just left everything out on the table. Like when he did it the first time, and
Mm-hmm.
it was such an emotional moment because that was his last thing his wife did, and then they're. I feel bad for him because it's just like they're just like they're asking like, oh, you need to make a decision really quick here, and he's like, this you're literally asking me to do like the hardest thing like like
Yeah,
anyone's ever asked me to do, and you're asking me to do that like right now.
yeah.
And they're like, well, we'll give you like a day or two to think about it.
And then he drives. He doesn't drive. He gets driven around as like a break from everything. That's when the really tender moments come into this movie, I think.
Yeah,
There, so there is a lot of dialogue here, but I think I also really like its quiet moments too. Like there's a really great scene where the driver takes him to a landfill, like a place where they burn garbage, and it's just very
yeah,
windy, and they're
like
watching
an
it.
incinerator. Yeah,
Yeah, an incinerator. Yeah, and just a few moments of them just hanging out, looking at the water there too. I think the way it matches like heavy dialogue with just moments of like, I don't know, it's kind of thoughtful, quiet moments.
yeah, it is a little weird because he's like, because she told him the story about how her mom had died, and
Hmm.
he's like, or maybe it was before, but he was like, let's go to Hokkaido, and she's like, there's nothing there. He's like, oh, that's fine. And
Like kind of like prodding her, like, hey, you're gonna show me where you come from.
yeah, and she's like, whatever, like if that's what you want.
Yeah, I'm the
And
driver.
but yeah, they have a really emotional moment because she takes him to like the site where like her mother had died,
Hmm.
and they have a very tender moment, and that's kind of like I guess the nourishment that he was kind of like looking for. He got the strength or whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
like, to actually do the role, and he does come back and give the performance.
Yeah, and that's 2 hours, like 40 minutes in the movie, and he finally has his emotions. Like, okay, like he finally lets it out almost.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, there's so much of this movie. I feel like there's a lot to talk about, but I don't want to go too deep into it because I do think that this movie, in my opinion, I highly recommend this movie. I think it's such a cool movie. I think it's a just really beautiful movie. I'll use that word. So I say check it out.
well, I want to ask you about the ending though,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
very so like what you interpreted that as, because at the very end of the movie, he's had the performance, so presumably he's
Hmm.
stopped doing this like little workshop, but then
Hmm.
you see at the end of the movie, his driver goes grocery shopping by herself and gets into his car
Yeah.
again with a dog. And there was a couple earlier because it's revealed that there was the deaf lady, the deaf Korean woman.
Hmm.
She was married to another guy, and they had a dog too. So I was just like,
Yeah.
well, that's why you said there's nothing romantic going on. I'm like, I don't know. Is there? I mean, or like, is she living with him now
It's
or what?
it's very open to interpretation, right? I could take it multiple ways. I don't think there's one way to look at it, and it definitely doesn't give you that. Like you said, they could. The first time I watched this, I thought, okay, they're living with each other now, or there's something romantic there. But I almost wonder if maybe he gave her the car, like it was like a way to kind of step away from his past life almost, and he
Okay.
gave it to her. That's kind of what I feel like now. And then
I could,
she gave affection to that dog earlier in the movie, so she likes dogs.
well, that was a different dog though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a different dog, but I'm just saying she was just like, I'm gonna get another dog. I'm gonna get a dog for myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
I could, no, now that you said that, I could see that being the case.
Yeah, kind of like a new leaf kind of deal. Yeah.
Could be. Who knows?
That's the thing. It's an interpretation. Like it's one of those endings where it does not give you any sort of answer, really.
Uh, I want answers. I want each person to like say, like, I'm a bad guy. I'm a good guy.
Uh huh.
I want clear cut reasons and
Yeah.
I want big giant red flags.
Return of the King fades to black, fades back in, fades to black, fades back in. Each character getting their due, their wrap up.
Yeah, like there should have been a scene where she calls him on the phone. She said, I'm glad we're married now, or I'm glad that you gave me this car.
Yeah, that would be nice. And he's like,
Uh,
yeah, well, I'm living now in Tokyo. I'm opened up my bar. I've quit acting, and I love serving alcohol to everybody. I hope to see
Is
you
it,
again.
yeah, it's like, I don't know why I just told you that because I've already told you this multiple times, but I just felt like telling you this again.
I felt like just explaining myself to you. I could see. There's probably
You're telling me that would hinder your enjoyment of the movie, Nathan?
yeah, no, yeah, I would love it. So I'm sure if I read the book, I'd have a much, because this is based off of a short story in a book collection. But from what I've found, he combined a lot of the short stories together and added his own stuff. So what's covered in this isn't completely like the short story, but maybe we get the answers in the book. Who knows?
Maybe. Um, well, yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot. I'd give this a recommend. I will specify though, this is definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, a lot of people, I know they they get antsy when they see like 10-minute scenes of dialogue or whatever, unless they're just constant action or whatever. But like I said, if it's something that, you're interested in, you're looking for something a little more heavy, something very emotional, something where you can kind of really sink your teeth into, this is something that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess that wraps it up for today. Ryan, what are we going to be talking about on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, it's a very special episode of Drive-In Double Feature next time on Thursday. That is because it will be our 1-year anniversary from our first episode.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Yeah, we wanted to do something a little special. Like I said, Nathan and I, we kind of did some practice episodes, whatever you want to call it, over on the Media Boys channel, like where this podcast originally originated from.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we did was we actually covered the entire filmography of Ralph Bakshi. That was like our first unofficial episode, but that wasn't a drive-in double feature. So we wanted to do something where we went back to our past, and this will actually be our first redo episode. We're giving a full
That's
episode to the movie that stood out from all the other movies, and that will be American Pop. And that one is actually over on Tubi. Got gotta love Tubi. It's always got your hookup. But
Yes.
Please join us for this special episode, and we'll see you then.
Well, if you want to send us an email, you can send us an email over at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, you can follow us over on Twitter, maybe. We'll see how long that lasts at DIDF Pod. But until next time.
Until